It was a warm Sunday morning in Dallas, Texas. Pastor Malcolm Rivers stood at the pulpit of Grace of Zion Ministries, a small but vibrant Pentecostal church known for its miracles and healing services. His voice echoed through the hall as he preached passionately about faith, hope, and the joy of waiting on God's promises. Members waved their hands, shouted, "Amen," and danced in praise. But no one expected the shocking news that would follow the final prayer. As the church prepared to close, his wife, First Lady Naomi Rivers, stood beside him wearing a radiant white dress. She held the microphone with a glowing smile and trembling hands. "Church," she said softly, "I have a testimony. After years of waiting, God has done it for us. I'm pregnant." The church exploded in cheers and hallelujahs. Many had prayed for this miracle. Pastor Malcolm, always composed, forced a smile and gently touched her shoulder. No one noticed his hand slightly trembled. He nodded as if in agreement, but his heart raced in confusion and panic. Only he knew the truth. He had been diagnosed as sterile 10 years ago. The news had broken him deeply, but he kept it private. He and Naomi had tried IVF, prayed, fasted, and even traveled for healing crusades, but nothing had worked. Eventually, he accepted his condition as God's will. And now this? As he hugged her for the congregation to see, his mind spiraled. Was it really a miracle or betrayal? That evening, after service, Malcolm sat quietly in his study, staring at the framed certificate from their wedding, and beside it, the doctor's letter confirming his sterility. His hands clenched the wooden armrest of his chair. Naomi knocked and entered with tea. "Why didn't you tell me first?" he asked coldly. She looked surprised. "I wanted to surprise you. I just found out 2 days ago." "Naomi," he said slowly, "you know I can't father a child." There was a long silence. Her smile faded and her face grew pale. "I don't know what you mean," she whispered, but her eyes blinked rapidly. "Yes, you do," he said, his voice colder than before. "Who is the father?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but she turned away, avoiding his gaze. "I don't want to talk about this," she said quickly. "Let's just thank God." "I asked you a question," he snapped, standing up. "If you don't answer me now, I will find out myself." Naomi dropped the cup of tea, and it shattered on the floor. She backed away slowly. "Please, Malcolm, let's just talk tomorrow." But the storm had begun. That night, Malcolm didn't sleep. He went through Naomi's phone while she was in the shower, found nothing suspicious. He checked her messages, her recent calls, even her calendar. Everything seemed normal, but deep down he knew she was hiding something, and he was determined to find out what. The next morning, church members gathered again for Monday prayers. Naomi walked in alone. Pastor Malcolm was nowhere to be seen. People whispered but kept praying. At home, Malcolm wasn't just angry anymore. He was hurt, betrayed, and humiliated. Some secrets break a man's heart, others break his mind, and Malcolm was already cracking. The prayer meeting ended quietly that Monday morning, but the silence carried a weight of whispers and side glances. Naomi forced a smile as she walked past the members, many of whom congratulated her again on the pregnancy. She nodded politely but kept her eyes low. She had not seen Malcolm since the argument the night before. Back at the parsonage behind the church, the house was eerily silent. Naomi stepped inside slowly, clutching her handbag tightly. The air felt heavy. She called out, "Malcolm?" No answer. She went into the study, empty. Kitchen, untouched. Their bedroom, he hadn't slept in their bed. Only his Bible was on the dresser, open to the book of Jeremiah. The verse underlined read, "Cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his strength." Naomi sat on the edge of the bed, her body trembling. She whispered to herself, "What have I done?" 3 blocks away, in a quiet corner diner, Pastor Malcolm sat alone, stirring cold coffee. His eyes were bloodshot, his tie loosened, and his Bible lay closed beside him. Across from him sat Deacon Thomas, one of his oldest friends and a trusted confidant in the church. "She says it's a miracle," Malcolm muttered, "but I know what I am. I've been sterile for years." Deacon Thomas frowned. "Are you sure the tests were right?" "I took them 3 times. Different hospitals, same result." He looked out the window. "I never told Naomi. I didn't want her to feel like less of a woman. I thought maybe God would still do something. But now this. Thomas leaned in. So you think she cheated? Malcolm's silence was answer enough. Thomas lowered his voice. Look, you need to stay calm. Don't do anything rash. Let's find out the truth first. I've already made up my mind, Malcolm said. I'm going to find the man. Thomas looked worried. What are you going to do when you do? Malcolm's jaw clenched. That depends on what he says. That night, Naomi sat on the edge of the bed and finally made a call. I need to see you, she said into the phone. Tomorrow, at the usual place. She didn't notice the door of the study slowly closing behind her. The next day, Naomi drove to a quiet parking lot near Lake Hill Park. She parked, waited, then a silver car pulled in beside her. A man stepped out, tall, dark-skinned, and in his late 30s. He looked like someone who didn't belong in a church story. He entered the passenger seat of Naomi's car. She looked around nervously. I told you not to call me anymore, he said harshly. I'm pregnant, Marcus, she replied. You think I can just keep quiet? He looked stunned. That's not my problem. Naomi's eyes welled with tears. It is your problem. I can't lie to my husband anymore. He's already suspicious. I don't know what he'll do. Then don't tell him it's mine, Marcus snapped. Say it's God's miracle or something. Isn't that what you Christians do? She stared at him, horrified. You promised you loved me. Marcus laughed dryly. It was just fun, Naomi. You made it real. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught her eye in the side mirror. A figure walked, past the parked cars, paused, then kept going. She turned, heart racing, but the figure was gone. She didn't know that Malcolm had followed her. He had seen the man, seen them talking, and in his soul something broke beyond repair. Later that night, Malcolm stood in the church sanctuary alone. He looked up at the large cross behind the altar, tears streaking down his face. He whispered, I gave everything to God. I trusted her. I led this flock, and this is how I'm repaid? He picked up the oil from the altar and poured it onto his hands, letting it drip like blood. This church will soon see what betrayal really looks like. The next Sunday came with a strange air around the church. The sky was overcast, and even the usually energetic choir seemed more reserved. Church members filled the pews quietly, whispering to each other, sensing something wasn't right. Pastor Malcolm walked into the sanctuary with a stiffness that didn't go unnoticed. He wore his usual black suit, but his face was pale and his smile was gone. Naomi followed behind him, her growing baby bump just barely noticeable beneath her flowing dress. She sat on the front pew, her hands resting gently over her stomach. She avoided eye contact with everyone, including her husband. The sermon that morning was not like Malcolm's usual messages of hope and healing. Instead, he read from the book of Hosea about a prophet whose wife had been unfaithful. We all wear masks, he said, his voice low and controlled. Some smile in front of people but lie in the dark. Some say they are chosen, but are living in sin. The congregation shifted uneasily. God sees the secret, he continued, and he will not be mocked. What is done in the dark will come into the light. Naomi's heart pounded. Her hands shook. She looked up at Malcolm, but he never looked back at her. His eyes were locked on the crowd, but his words were arrows, and everyone knew who they were meant for. That evening, Naomi tried to talk. You embarrassed me in front of the whole church, she said, standing in the kitchen as he washed his hands at the sink. Malcolm didn't answer. I told you I was sorry, she said softly. I was weak, but I never wanted to hurt you. He turned slowly, drying his hands with a towel. Who is he? He asked. She shook her head. I can't tell you. You will tell me. No, Malcolm, she said firmly. You'll do something crazy. He stepped closer, voice rising. Do you think I don't know already? I saw you with him, in that car, by the park. Naomi gasped. Malcolm's voice was low and sharp. That man, he works at the county jail, doesn't he? Former inmate turned volunteer chaplain. He was at our outreach event last fall. Naomi looked down, silent. You brought him into our church, Malcolm said through clenched teeth. You brought him to me, and then you took him to our bed. No, she cried. We never did anything in our house, I swear. Malcolm stared at her, a strange calm washing over him. God may forgive you, he said, but I won't. He turned and walked away, leaving Naomi in tears. 2 days later, Naomi received a call from Marcus. We need to talk, in private. Naomi hesitated. Malcolm knows. I don't think we should be seen together. I think he's dangerous, Marcus said, his voice shaking. He came to my house yesterday. Didn't say a word. Just stood outside for 10 minutes, staring through the window. Then he left. Naomi's heart dropped. What? I think he's planning something. Be careful. She hung up the phone, locked every door in the house, and checked the windows twice. That night she slept in the guest room, away from Malcolm. Meanwhile, Malcolm sat in the dark sanctuary of the church, Bible open, tears falling silently. Lord, he prayed aloud, I asked you for a child. I served you with everything in me. I obeyed you. He wiped his eyes. But she defiled our bed, turned your altar into a joke. I can't let her bring shame on your house. He reached into the pulpit drawer and pulled out a small black box. Inside was a gun, one he had owned for years but never used. Until now. He whispered, Forgive me, Lord, but the wages of sin is still death. It was Thursday evening when Naomi decided to cook Malcolm's favorite meal, grilled salmon, mashed potatoes, and steamed vegetables. The aroma filled the parsonage, but the warmth in the air was fake. It was a peace offering wrapped in fear. Naomi set the table neatly for two, lighting a single candle in the center. She hadn't seen Malcolm all day. He'd been avoiding her since the confrontation. Every footstep she heard outside made her heart race. Every door creak reminded her of the words he had spoken. God may forgive you, but I won't. She heard the door unlock. Her breath caught in her throat. Malcolm walked in slowly. His eyes scanned the table, then her face. He didn't say a word. I made dinner, Naomi said softly. He looked at the food but didn't sit. Where were you today? She asked, forcing calm into her voice. Praying, he replied. Naomi gave a nervous smile. I've been praying too. I know I made a mistake, but I want us to be whole again. Please, Malcolm, let's leave this behind. Start fresh. We could go away. Just the two of us. We could even raise the baby somewhere quiet. Malcolm finally sat down. She poured him a glass of juice, hands slightly shaking. He watched her silently. She sat across from him. For a moment, they ate in silence. The sound of the fork on the plate felt too loud. Naomi tried again. Do you remember our trip to Galveston Beach? She asked gently. The day you baptized that entire family? You said it was the happiest day of your life. Malcolm didn't answer. He was chewing slowly, staring at her. Malcolm? He set down his fork. You still haven't told me why you did it. Naomi looked down. I was lonely. You were always at the church. I started to feel invisible. He nodded slowly. So you found comfort in another man. I didn't plan to fall into it, she whispered. It just happened. I hate myself for it. But you didn't stop, he said. She looked at him, her voice cracking. I'm trying to fix it. I'm here, Malcolm. I want to be your wife again. He stood up. I don't need you to be my wife again, he said. Her heart dropped. Then what do you need? I need closure. She stood too. Malcolm, please. I'm begging you. Think about the baby. This is not my child, he shouted, pounding the table while hard the juice spilled. It's his. It'll never be mine. Tears streamed down her face. We can still raise it. Malcolm reached into his coat pocket. Naomi froze. Her voice was barely a whisper. What? What are you doing? He pulled out a small black box. Her breath caught, but instead of a gun, it was a voice recorder. He pressed play. Her own voice came through, recorded from her call with Marcus 2 nights earlier. I can't lie to my husband anymore. He's already suspicious. I don't know what he'll do. Then don't tell him it's mine, Marcus had said. Say it's God's miracle or something. Naomi's knees buckled. She slumped into the chair, stunned. You recorded me, she whispered. I had to be sure, Malcolm replied. Now I am, she sobbed. What are you going to do with it? He looked at her for a long time. I'm not going to the police, not yet. She looked up, confused. Then what? I want Marcus to come here, Malcolm said. To the church, Sunday morning. I want him to sit in the front pew. I want him to see what he destroyed. "Are you planning something?" she asked carefully. "I'm planning the truth," he said. "That's all." Then he walked out. Naomi stayed frozen, her eyes wide in fear, unsure whether she had just been spared or warned. That night, Malcolm sat again in the empty sanctuary. The only light came from a single candle burning at the altar. He read from the Psalms. "Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler." He closed the Bible. He opened the drawer again. The gun was still there, loaded, waiting, and Sunday was only 3 days away. Sunday morning arrived, but the sun did not shine. Clouds rolled over Dallas like heavy gray blankets, and thunder rumbled quietly in the distance. Grace of Zion Ministries filled up slowly. Everyone could sense something strange, though no one could name it. The air was still, too still. Pastor Malcolm stood in the church office, staring at his reflection in the mirror. He wore a black suit, freshly ironed, and a dark maroon tie, the same tie he wore at his father's funeral. He combed his hair with precision and rubbed oil on his palms. In his jacket pocket was the black handgun. It pressed against his side like a secret that screamed. In the mirror, he whispered to himself, "God is a God of judgment." Outside, Naomi sat in the front pew, pale and tired. Her belly was now clearly showing. She wore a loose purple dress and kept her eyes on the church door. Every time it opened, she flinched. Then Marcus entered. He wore a white shirt, dark jeans, and a baseball cap. He looked uncomfortable and out of place, but he walked straight to the front and sat 2 seats away from Naomi. They didn't speak. She didn't even look at him. The choir finished singing, and the sanctuary grew silent. Malcolm walked in through the side door, Bible in hand. "Let us rise," he said, voice calm but heavy. Everyone stood. He read from the book of Numbers, chapter 32. "Be sure your sin will find you out." A hush fell over the room. "Today," he said slowly, "we speak not of grace, but of consequences. There is a difference between forgiveness and forgetting. God may pardon your soul, but justice still comes knocking." His eyes swept over the congregation, then paused on Marcus. "Some men enter the house of God wearing the clothing of peace, but their hands drip with blood." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Naomi felt her chest tighten. "Some women," Malcolm continued, now staring at Naomi, "preach virtue with their lips, while they carry deception in their womb." A gasp escaped from one of the older church mothers. Naomi stood up quickly. "Malcolm, please don't do this here." "This is exactly where it must be done," he thundered. "On the altar they defiled." Marcus stood now, raising his hands. "Pastor, I didn't mean for any of this." "Silence," Malcolm roared. "You came into my house. You laid with my wife. You planted your seed in soil that was not yours." Gasps filled the sanctuary. Some people started standing. Others whispered in shock. A few pulled out phones, recording the scene. "Y'all need to calm down," Marcus said nervously. "This ain't the place." "This is the only place," Malcolm said, reaching into his jacket. Naomi screamed, "Malcolm, no!" Too late. He pulled the gun. Chaos exploded in the church. People ducked under pews, screamed, ran for the doors. The choir scattered. Naomi lunged forward and grabbed Malcolm's arm. The gun fired. Once. The sound rang like a thunderclap in the sanctuary. Naomi collapsed to the ground, clutching her side. Blood spread quickly across her dress. "No! No!" Malcolm dropped to his knees beside her. "Naomi!" She gasped for air, eyes wide. I was going to tell you. It's not Marcus's." He froze. "What?" "It's someone else." I didn't know how to say it. The words left her lips like dust. Then her eyes rolled back. Members rushed forward now. Some tried to help. Others cried. Marcus stood frozen, his face pale as chalk. Malcolm dropped the gun and wept over her. "I didn't mean to shoot. I just wanted to scare him." "Naomi." Sirens wailed in the distance. The house of God was now a crime scene. 10 minutes later, paramedics rushed Naomi to the hospital. She was alive, but barely. The bullet had missed her heart, but struck near her ribs. The baby's fate was unknown. Pastor Malcolm sat handcuffed in the back of a police car, staring out the window at the church sign. Grace of Zion Ministries, a place of healing and hope. He laughed bitterly. Hope was gone, and Grace had left long ago. The halls of Mercy General Hospital echoed with beeping monitors and hurried footsteps. Naomi lay unconscious in a recovery room, her face pale, her body connected to tubes and machines. Nurses whispered outside her door while a police officer stood guard nearby. The bullet had missed her heart, but the internal bleeding was severe. Doctors had performed emergency surgery on both her and the unborn child. The baby had survived. For now. Detective Laura Barnes, a seasoned homicide investigator, arrived at the hospital early that morning. She reviewed the medical file and made a note in her small leather-bound notebook. Victim, Naomi Rivers, 34 years old. Gunshot wound, lower left torso, unborn child viable. Shooter, Malcolm Rivers, husband and local pastor. Motive, infidelity plus emotional collapse. Weapon, registered firearm. She had seen many cases, but this one had a deeper complexity. A man of God turned violent. A church turned crime scene. A woman caught between guilt, pain, and truth. She closed the file and headed to the station. At the Dallas County Jail, Malcolm Rivers sat in a plain gray jumpsuit, handcuffed to the cold steel table in the interrogation room. His face looked older, drained. The fire in his eyes from last Sunday had died out, replaced by something hollow. Detective Barnes entered, placed a recorder on the table, and sat across from him. "Pastor Rivers," she began calmly, "you've waived your right to an attorney?" He nodded once. "I need to ask you what happened that day, in your words." He sighed, rubbing his wrist where the cuffs pinched. "I never planned to shoot her." "Then who did you intend to shoot?" Silence. "Was it Marcus?" "I don't know," he whispered. "I just wanted the truth to hurt as much as it hurt me." Barnes leaned forward. "You brought a loaded weapon into a place of worship. You exposed your wife's pregnancy, accused her of cheating, and pulled a gun in front of 100 witnesses. She lied to me. She's in the hospital. You could have killed her. You still might have." Malcolm stared at the table. "Did you know the baby wasn't Marcus's?" "No," he said quietly. "She told me after I pulled the trigger." "Do you believe her?" "I don't know what to believe anymore," he said. "I served God. I gave him everything. But Naomi, she took the only thing I had left to hope for." Detective Barnes tapped her pen. "Do you know who the real father is?" Malcolm looked up slowly. "She said it was someone else, not Marcus. That's all I know. And if she dies," Malcolm swallowed hard, "then I'll never know." Meanwhile, Naomi regained consciousness for a few minutes later that afternoon. Her voice was faint, her eyes fluttered. Nurse Layla stood by her side, gently holding her hand. "Can you hear me, ma'am?" Naomi blinked once, then twice. "Your baby is still alive," the nurse said gently. "You're both fighters." Naomi's lips trembled. "Call him," she whispered. "He's in custody." Tears filled her eyes. "It wasn't Marcus." Nurse Layla leaned closer. "Who was it, sweetheart?" Naomi opened her mouth, then closed it again. She was fading. Then one name left her lips. "Thomas." And she lost consciousness again. The nurse's eyes widened. "Thomas? Deacon Thomas?" Back at the church, crime scene tape still hung from the entrance. Inside, the sanctuary was quiet. Too quiet. Bloodstains remained near the altar. The place that once felt sacred now felt haunted. Detective Barnes returned later that evening, her notepad in hand. She walked down the aisle slowly, replaying everything she had heard. She looked up at the pulpit, the same place where Malcolm had accused his wife. Then she looked down. Beneath the altar carpet, where it had shifted during the struggle, she noticed something shiny sticking out, barely visible. She knelt and pulled it loose. A tiny silver necklace, a broken chain, with a small charm. T. Barnes stared at it, then made a call. "Detective Barnes to dispatch. I need a current address on a Thomas McCline. Works at Grace of Zion Ministries." Title: Deacon Things Were Not What They Seemed, and Naomi's whisper had just opened a new door. 3 days passed. Naomi remained in the ICU, drifting between sleep and painful consciousness. The baby was stable, kept under close watch in the neonatal unit. But outside the hospital room, a different storm was gathering. one of lies, secrets, and long-buried truth. Detective Laura Barnes stood in front of a modest brownstone house in South Dallas. It belonged to Deacon Thomas McCline. She had called 3 times. No answer. No return. Now she knocked. The door opened slowly. Thomas stood there dressed in casual clothes, not his usual church suit. His face looked tired, but when he saw her badge, he didn't act surprised. "We need to talk," Barnes said. He stepped aside, wordless. Inside, the home was clean, quiet. A shelf filled with Bibles, commentaries, and framed pictures of church events lined the wall. But there was no warmth, just the echo of holy things masking something unholy. Barnes sat across from him at the dining table. "She named you," she said plainly. Thomas looked away. "In the hospital," she continued. "She said you were the father of the baby." He rubbed his eyes. "She wasn't supposed to say that." "So it's true?" He exhaled deeply. "Yes, it's true." Silence filled the room. "She came to me for counseling," he said, "a year ago, after one of their big fights. I was just trying to comfort her. That comfort turned physical?" He nodded slowly. "It started once, then again, then more. We always said we'd stop, that it was wrong, but you didn't." "No? Did Pastor Malcolm know?" "I don't think so. He was convinced it was Marcus." "Why didn't you speak up when everything exploded?" Thomas looked her dead in the eye. "Because if I had, he would have killed me too." Back at the jail, Malcolm sat in the interview room once again. His eyes were dark, hollowed by sleepless nights. When Barnes walked in this time, she placed a photo on the table. Thomas and Naomi, smiling at a charity event. "Do you know what this is?" she asked. He stared. "She said it wasn't Marcus. She told us who the father is." He clenched his jaw. "Who?" "Deacon Thomas." Malcolm's entire body tensed. Then he chuckled bitterly. "I trusted him. He baptized me. He stood with me at my wedding. He prayed with me every Monday night." He paused, gripping the edge of the table. "All this time it was him?" Barnes didn't answer. "I was right to feel something was wrong," he whispered, "but I punished the wrong man." Naomi slowly recovered over the next 2 weeks. Her wounds began to heal, but the scar in her heart would take longer. One day a nurse brought her a letter. There was no name on the envelope. Inside, handwritten in Malcolm's bold script, was a single page. "Naomi, I don't know where to begin. I have sinned against you, against God, and against myself. I let anger become my altar and revenge my sermon. I said I wanted truth, but what I really wanted was pain to be shared. I still don't know who you are anymore, and I don't know who I am either. But I do know this. I forgive you, not because I'm strong, but because I must, for the child's sake. May he grow up in peace, far from the weight of our mistakes. May he never know the version of me who lost his soul in the sanctuary." Malcolm Naomi folded the letter slowly, tears running down her face. She whispered, "Amen." 2 months later, Grace of Zion Ministries reopened under new leadership. The walls had been repainted, the altar cleaned, the gunshot scar removed from the pew. But the memory remained. Naomi chose not to return. She relocated to another city with her newborn son, naming him Ezekiel. God strengthens. Pastor Malcolm was sentenced to 5 years in prison for aggravated assault. He spent his time quietly, reading, praying, and counseling inmates. He never picked up a pulpit again. As for Deacon Thomas, he resigned, left the church, and disappeared from public life. Some said he moved to Georgia. Others believed he went into hiding. But the truth was known now. Justice had been slow, broken, messy, but in its own way, complete. And in the quiet shadows of a once holy sanctuary, truth echoed, "Betrayal never begins with a gun. It begins with silence."